All right. Hello and welcome everyone to Increasing Organic Traffic for your new content. Before we get started, you guys know how I like to kind of start these things off. I like to kind of start with a story. Recently, I moved across the country, and so we had to get a lot of new furniture, and it was way easier for us to basically get rid of a lot of the existing stuff that we had. So when we moved into the new place, we had to get new things. And IKEA is a place where you can go and buy furniture, and then you have to assemble it yourself. And I thought this sounded like a really good idea. And so it ended up taking me hours and hours, and it ended up being like this huge convoluted process. But the reason was because I don't really like to look at the directions, especially if they look hard to do or complex to me. I like to kind of figure it out on my own. And so my dresser kind of ends up looking like this. It's kind of mangled. It doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And so at that point, then I have to go back to the directions, right, and kind of unscramble where I went wrong. And the reason is because the directions kind of look like this. Like when you put together IKEA stuff, it's kind of complex looking. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of things that affect other stuff, and you just kind of hope you can figure it out on your own. But the truth is, it's actually pretty hard to do. And so essentially that's what I want to do today as it relates to content and getting it to rank in organic search for you guys. I want to make it easier. So I'm going to show you what I've done for years and years, and basically the stuff that data supports works the best. So I'm going to show you guys how to do front-end research, understand the way that things work, so that whenever you write new content or create new stuff, that it's going to A, rank in organic search, and then B, be worth your time. So that's the other thing, is you may have something that ranks in search, maybe ranks #1, but it may not be for a keyword that even matters. And this is one of the top things that I hear from people all the time. So this is what we're going to talk about today. For you guys wondering, who is this guy talking? If you've never been to one of these web events before hosted by Ezoic, my name is Tyler Bishop. I'm an award-winning marketer and the head of marketing for Ezoic. We're a Google certified publishing partner. I've served as an SEO expert on numerous startup boards. I've helped dozens of different sites exponentially increase their organic traffic. And I'm also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, which I don't think is going to come into play here at all today, but I thought it would be fun to share. So with that being said, here are the things that I'm going to highlight today. I'm going to show you how to create new content that is more likely to rank for high volume keywords, what we were talking about earlier. Are people going to care about this new content that you're going to create, and are they going to actually go view it through search? What kind of research can help you with your efforts to produce measurable results? So like, what types of things can you do to make sure that you're actually making an impact? Everybody wants ROI for their time that they invest in their website, and I think that's a big part of what we're going to come away with today. And then the last part is basically just extra tricks for getting your new content to rank in search. So everybody wants that instant, like I posted an article today and tomorrow it's #1 in Google and getting thousands and thousands of new visitors. But the truth is, it takes a little bit of time, but there's things you can do to speed this up, and I'm going to show you what those are today. So if you guys have questions, enter the questions throughout the webinar. If they're general things, I'm hoping that they'll be answered here in the event, so I'll skip over those. But if they're things that are related to the subject that I'm discussing at the time, I'll address those at the end as time allows. Otherwise, what we do sometimes is when everybody gets the recording after this, sometimes I go through the questions and I add to the recording some of my answers to the questions. So that's what we'll do here again. So I'll get to some of the questions at the end, but I'll also kind of just tag some of the stuff on the recording. If there's stuff in this event that you're looking at and you're like, I really want that, don't worry. Everybody's going to automatically get a recording and a copy of the slides when it's all done with. So don't worry about writing stuff down or trying to do screen captures or anything like that. So basically what I'm going to talk about is ensuring that you're going to rank in search results before you ever write a post. And not only ensuring that you rank, but also ensuring that it's something that's worth ranking for. So I'm going to show you how to do on the front end here actual keyword research that's going to save you a ton of time. So basically make sure that you're writing stuff that people are going to find in search and is going to actually generate real organic traffic, right? And so today I'm going to be doing a lot of this using the Moz keyword planning tool. You can do 5 free searches using Moz's tool with all full functionality a month. But if you want to do more than it, you have to pay for it, which we use. You can also use tools like SEMrush. If you use SEMrush, it has the same functionality. AdWords has a keyword planner that gives you a lot of the same functions. WordStream has a keyword planner that's kind of freemium in the same way. And then there's another free one called app.wordtracker.com that's pretty good too. So you can do this with a number of different tools, your choice. I just happen to be using Moz today. So essentially what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to use these tools when you're doing like keyword research on the front end to basically figure out, A, is it worth writing about, and if it's gonna produce a volume of organic search that's worth going after. Can I beat existing results? So hint, don't rely on the scores that the tools give you for this. I'm going to show you kind of how to do your own analysis. And then can I hedge my bets, and can I make sure that even if I write this and maybe I don't rank #1 for that keyword, that I'm still going to get good organic traffic from this post. I'm going to go into a little bit about how that's done in general. So I'm going to actually dive into a live screen. So I'm going to go full screen here, so that you guys can see everything that I'm doing. So pardon the like mirrored projections here for a second. So here is the Moz Keyword Explorer, and I'm gonna go ahead and type in martial arts training. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I'm into martial arts. So I have a Jiu-Jitsu website, and we're gonna kind of use it as an example today. So you can see martial arts training. Maybe I wanna write a post on this. The volume is actually pretty good here. So I'm looking at, for my particular website, I'm writing about a niche that doesn't have, a lot of keywords with like super high volume traffic. Like I'm not writing about coffee or something like that. And so martial arts training 851 to 1700 is pretty good monthly volume, right? I'm going to show you guys how we're going to hedge our bets and essentially increase the pool of that volume here in a second. But the next thing that I want to look at is I really want to see the other pages that rank for this, right? So in this tool, it gives me all the different pages and gives me some more information. But if I wasn't using this tool, I could simply Google search this myself and see, what are the top 10 results for martial arts training. So Moz is giving me already. I could also just type this into Google and get the same results. Moz gives me a little bit extra stuff. You can download Moz Bar for free. You can see this little number up here in my tab. It's a free thing that runs. So I could actually go to Google this, go to each of these pages and see individually what this information was. So page authority and domain authority. This is basically telling me, how big are these sites? How branded are they? How credible are they? So you can see here for this particular result, the top results, the domain authorities these are not major sites. Black Belt Magazine, it's a fairly well-known site. WikiHow, it's a bigger size domain. But in a lot of cases here, if we dig in deeper and I go in and I look at exactly what is the content that is ranking here, I can see, this is kind of a triage page where it's taking me information about a lot of different martial arts. So I might be thinking about writing this comprehensive guide on martial arts training, and I think that the post that I could write would be much better than this one, right? So this one is kind of just giving me general information. I'm sure it gets lots of page views per visit, but I bet the bounce is pretty high for it too. So if I go back to my Keyword Explorer here, I see, hey, I'm not worried about competing with a lot of major brand sites. I'm looking at some of the content that's in these pages. It's not that great. I think I can do better. So this is a good way for me to look at this keyword and say, okay, it's got a high volume. I'm looking at the other results. I think I can write content that's better than that. I'm not competing against, a really major branded site like The Verge or Forbes.com or something like that has really great content. I'm competing against other sites that aren't that big, that don't have the best content in the world for this. So I'm going to go back to my overview here. And the other thing that I want to do is hedge my bets. So in case I'm wrong, right, and I write this post on martial arts training and it doesn't rank in the top 10 to begin with, am I going to be completely out of luck? So I'm going to go in here and see what other keywords are associated with this that also get decent volume. So these are much smaller, but I can actually add in elements of this into my post. So when I'm writing about martial arts training now, I might have a section on martial arts training at home, martial arts training exercises, martial arts training shoes, how to pick a martial arts trainer. If inside of my post I add these things, the chances of me actually ranking for these terms now is actually really good. So if I hit a home run, maybe I rank for all of these things and then my volume is way up. But even if I miss, I'm still going to get some organic search So I'm not wasting my time creating this content. And you can see here, there's a lot of different options, martial arts training equipment. So again, if I go back to my idea of creating a post on martial arts training, this comprehensive guide, I could actually use this to kind of guide my different sections, almost as an outline for the content that I'm about to write. So this allows me to hedge my bets and also improve the amount of traffic that I could potentially get from writing on this subject. So if we're going to head back in here now. So now we've done the research on the front end, and I think it's really important actually to point out before we go any further forward that in most cases when I'm doing this stuff, it's not like a first hit. So like martial arts training, I obviously did some research before this web event because I knew it would be a good example. But the truth is sometimes you're just going to have to scrap ideas. You may have a keyword in mind, it may be low volume. Actually, I see this a ton. What I see is people have this idea of like, oh, I'm going to write a post about scuba diving lessons, right? And you're convinced that scuba diving lessons is a really high volume keyword and that you're going to write this post on it. But then when you actually do the research, you see it only gets like 50 hits a month on average in search. And so you've got this grand idea about this keyword that actually doesn't really get any search. And I see this a lot. So it's really important to do this research on the front end to save yourself some time. With that being said, once you've done the research and you've kind of got an idea of what you want to create, how do you make sure that your post actually beats the stuff that's out there right now? So we talked about this earlier. I thought I could beat some of the other things that were out there. Essentially what I want to optimize for is I want to reduce bounce rate, I want to increase page views per visit, and I want a like long session duration for my readers. So basically, I think that there's a really good formula for this. It's kind of been proven through multiple different blogs and things like that. Long form typically does better at these things just because innately you would imagine the more engaged somebody is with content because they're reading it, the more likely they are to click on other links, which makes the bounce rate go down, page views per visit go up, and then obviously session duration is longer as well. So long form content is not always the end all be all. You can also do gallery style stuff as well. But in this case, we're going to be talking more about long form. So kind of start with the title. You really like to use, it's really good to use images down your page to keep people kind of scrolling. It breaks up the content really well, and it keeps people kind of scrolling to the end, which is more likely for them to keep reading. You also want to break up each of your sections with H2s. And this gives you a way to kind of insert some of those other keywords that we were talking about earlier. So it gives you a chance to create those sessions. H2s are a good way to kind of highlight different keywords you're trying to rank for. At the beginning, I like to tease all the things I'm going to write about. So if I'm writing about martial arts training, but in the bottom there's stuff about martial arts training equipment, I want to make sure that I mention that in the beginning. So if somebody came there looking for that, I want them to make sure that, hey, don't go anywhere, keep reading, it's down here at the bottom. You continue to break things up with H2s. You want to do a short intro into subject matter and then just continue to break things up into sections with images as you go down the page. Another common misconception is that you put all your links to your other pages at the bottom. It's actually way better to put them at the top. I've talked about this before, but the truth is if you want to increase your page views per visit, you want to engage your users better. Who knows why they came to your site, but they came to your site because they're obviously interested in some element of a subject that you might be writing about. So you want to give them options early on of, hey, I've also got content on this, this, and this, or if you're looking for this, maybe go here, and it'll decrease your bounce rate. If you put it at the bottom, it's great. People that really loved your content maybe will go on and read other pages, but those people are potentially going to come along and read different pages of my site anyways. What I want to do is capture the people that may have interest in other parts of my site, but maybe found this current page not to be satisfactory for what they're looking for. So I want to do my best to guide those people that are most likely going to leave my site or leave bad UX metrics in my analytics than the people that are most likely to leave good ones anyways. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go back to my Jiu-Jitsu site and show you guys basically what this looks like in person. So I'm using WordPress. It's a really common CMS system that I imagine most people use. But if you use something else, the formula remains the same. So you can see here at the top, I've decided to title my post Martial Arts Training Guide and Resources. I keep my main keyword here, so that's good. And so I repeat it here in an H2 at the top of my post. It's just something I like to do. I just like the formatting of it. And it gets my keyword in the H2 again. So I start with a short paragraph. I hit them with a big image. And then I also say, hey, if you came here for something else, try these links. And I give them links to potentially other things that are related to this on my site so that I can, you know, potentially prevent somebody from bouncing if they think, hey, I actually was looking for something different, give them some options. And then I tease them with all the other stuff that I might potentially talk about here, right? So I want to tell them, listen, I'm going to talk about martial arts training exercises. I'm going to tell you about martial arts training at home. Don't go anywhere. Everything that you want to know about martial arts training is going to be here on this page. And hopefully I can keep those readers. So you can see I start with martial arts training exercise. So it's one of those extra keywords that we talked about earlier, those what I would call long tail keywords. I've got some images here. So, you know, inside of these images, I'm going to probably add, you know, alt image tags for martial arts training exercises. So Google and the search engines are going to see, you know, hey, there's a post here. Not only is it about martial arts training, it's got a whole section of martial arts training exercise with images in it. So potentially I can rank well for this long tail keyword inside of here. And then I do the same thing. One of the things I like to do as well, and I've talked about this before, I bold important text throughout different parts of my articles. They kind of work as bullet points, but they get people to, that people might be skimming through stuff. It gets them to kind of stop, hone in on this area, and maybe read different sections of it. I just want to stop people from scrolling to the bottom or scrolling through my images. I want them to read my content because it'll increase my session duration. So you can see here, sometimes too, you may find yourself, I don't have any more images left. I'm kind of bored with creating, you know, kind of one-off images or finding stuff that's not relevant. You can also use things like quotes. So you can see here, there's tags, obviously, for HTML to do quotes. In WordPress, it's just this block quote here. And I'll throw that in place of images sometimes because it breaks things up the same way. People see the quotes, they want to read them, they stand out a little bit differently in a formatting standpoint. So I'll throw little quotes and things like that in here, even if it's just my own quote from the article. You'll see people in magazines and things like that do that from time to time. So I continue to go through here and add in all the different long tail keywords that I want. And you can do this as long as you want. And basically you can kind of do this until you've got something really long or something you're happy with. And once you've reached that point, and WordPress, I really like using Yoast for this, but you can always hard code these things as well. I want to make sure that my title tags and my meta descriptions are well suited for my content. So, you know, when using Yoast inside of WordPress, which is a really common SEO tool, it's a free plugin. If you don't have Yoast SEO, go get it right now and just use it the best of your abilities. It's a pretty self-explanatory tool. But basically what this is my snippet is basically, it's my title tag and my meta description, right? So if you're going to edit these things in HTML, this is what you would edit. And this is what's going to show up in search results. So in this case, I decided to title it Martial Arts Training Guide and Resources, and then I add a pipe here and say Martial Arts Blog, right? So in a lot of cases, this would be, you know, my site. But in this case, I want to make sure that people understand that potentially are searching for this stuff. This is a martial arts blog, right? My slug in this case is it's just your URL. You can modify this here if you like. It's good to have your URL maintain the keyword. So that's just kind of a best practice. And then in my meta description, I say a complete martial arts training guide, a detailed library of martial arts training exercises, methods, equipment, and more to learn to practice martial arts, right? So I want to make sure that people that potentially could be searching for any of my long tail stuff would find this interesting. I use two descriptions. So I tell them it's a complete martial arts training guide. I tell them it's a detailed library, and then I tell them what they're going to learn, right? So I try to do my best to say, you know, what is it? What are you going to learn from going to this page? So those are two really good ways to kind of look at this. So basically, once this is done, I've got this all ready to go. My post is optimized the way I want. You can actually look at Yoast analysis here. This is pretty good. It'll show you a lot of just best practices stuff for the most part. I don't get too hung up on certain things like keyword density. Nobody wants to be keyword stuffing. It doesn't work anymore. You want to make sure your keywords are in the post. In this case, mine is martial arts training. And then remember, we had all those long tail keywords as well. But I don't want to get too hung up on the fact that maybe it's not in there 15 times or whatever it is. So don't worry about that. And then you can also see here it says the focus keyword doesn't appear in the first paragraph of the copy. That's not that important either, although you do want to make sure in the first paragraph you are letting people know what you're writing about in this post. It just may not contain the keyword in some cases. Okay. So now we're going to go back. So now we've created our post. It's written. We've done our research. Everything looks good. But now I got to rank, right? So I want to make sure that I get this awesome new post to rank as fast as possible. So there's some things I can do. I can actually tell Google to index this page right away so it starts showing up in results. But I also want to start getting those UX metrics on the page boosted, right? So Google doesn't really know what to do with it if there's not any visitors that have come to show like what the session duration is, what the bounce rate is, what the page views per visit are. So if Google has no idea how users like the page, it's still tough even if it's indexed. So I'm going to show you guys some easy ways to kind of do this. So here's a preview of this page. It's actually not published, so you're gonna have to bear with me. But you can see here's our post that we just did. It's full of lorem ipsum text and placeholder images here. But so now what I can do is I can throw it into some common content curation networks. So things like Flipboard, right? So I've got the Flipboard Chrome extension here. All you have to do is create an account, and you can create a magazine, and you can throw this stuff up on Flipboard. And it's not going to let me add because this is just a preview site, but it'll just be a little thing down here at the bottom that says add. Okay. So I just have to use Flipboard to add that. And then there's another one called Scoop It, scoop.it, I believe what it is. You can create an account on here, and you can see I've got a destination on Scoop It right now called Blogging on Online Publishing Tips. It's where I put a lot of content. And I can add tags to it, so I can put martial arts, right? And I can add a martial arts tag to this and hit publish, and it'll share my content into those networks as well. One last one you can throw it into is a thing called StumbleUpon. So stumbleupon.com/submit. You'll have to create an account for this as well. But I say, yes, it's safe for work. It's martial arts, right? So I tag this up. And then I can hit save, and it will it'll push this out to people that are potentially interested in martial arts that are using StumbleUpon. So this is a good way to get your content found by people that use those content curation networks and start getting users to that page so that Google can know that, hey, this is a great page. We need to move it up the rankings. But remember, I mentioned earlier that we want to make sure that our content is actually indexed in Google. So what you can do as soon as you publish it, you can actually ask Google to come and find this content and index it in search. So what you do is log into your Search Console. If you don't have it set up already, just search Search Console in Google, follow the steps. All you usually have to do is connect it to your Google Analytics or just install a script on your site, and you have access to this full dashboard. But I go into Crawl and then go to Fetches Google. And you can see it's got my URL here already. So all I need to do at this point is take my the back part of my URL here. So in this case, it's just a preview. So I actually don't know how Google's gonna handle this. It'll probably give it to me in some regard. So I'm gonna come here and then I click fetch. And Google's gonna run it. It's pending right now. It probably doesn't know what to do with this preview. What it'll do is whenever it'll finish this, it'll say complete. Yeah, it says temporarily unreachable because this is just a preview. But it'll say complete, and then it'll have a button right here where my cursor is, and it'll say submit to index. And you just click submit to index, and it'll give you two options. One is crawl this page only, and then the other say crawl all linked pages. If it's the first time you've ever done this, click crawl all linked pages. If you've done this before, or Google Search Console has indexed your site before, just make sure you click crawl only this page, because I've heard that it's not a good thing to have Google crawling your site constantly. So just crawl only this page, and then it will be indexed in Google usually within 24 to 48 hours. And so hopefully those content curation networks will do a good job of helping you out with that. But if not, another good thing to do is leverage social media. And everybody uses Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you use, but I also really like using TweetDeck. So I may have martial arts post. Oops, I spelled martial arts wrong there. Martial arts post, right? And then I can just post my URL here, whatever it is, some hashtags here, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is. And then I can add images and schedule it. And what I like to do is schedule multiple tweets. So I don't like to just tweet it out once. I like to tweet it out at least once a day for a couple weeks to make sure that I'm getting users driving to my new post so that we're building up those UX metrics. Another good source is Curation. So I might go into Quora or Cura. I'm not actually sure how to say it. You guys can correct me on this. But I might search martial arts training. Inside of here, I might get some, shall I join a martial arts? Shall I join a martial arts training or pick up a musical instrument? I might choose to answer this one. I might go in here and say, martial arts training is great. You can read everything you need to know about what it's like to train martial arts on this blog post and then link to my blog. It's another great way to basically answer questions that people are answering and then also get good links to your blog. So you're contributing to this community, basically going in, answering questions for people, but then also sharing links to your blog or website or content. And so this is another good way to kind of go and get your new content found early by users and to rank faster than normal. So those are all that's kind of the quick and dirty version of how to do a lot of this stuff. I'm going to kind of go back to sharing my screen this way. And so hopefully that's kind of helpful to you guys in being able to get this stuff kind of shared out there really quickly so that, that you build up those UX metrics and people see how great your content is. Because we already know, because we did the research on the front end, that there's a high volume, there's all these other long tail keywords that people are potentially searching for. So if you get all this stuff right on the front end, you do the right research, you write the post correctly, you use a good formula like the one that I showed you inside of my WordPress blog, and you're able to leverage things like community, social media, and Search Console, and those curation networks like Flipboard and Scoop It and Stumble Upon, you should be able to take new content and get it ranking within a couple weeks. And then usually, if it's particularly high volume, you're usually achieving max benefit within 3 months, 4 months, 5 months at the tops, which is actually very short. So if we're talking about weeks and months compared to, in some cases, years and things like that, this is a really good way to kind of get some ROI out of your SEO efforts. And it keeps you from wasting a lot of time on content. I see so many people write content that is just great content, but it's never going to get a single person to look for it because it's super low volume. Or I see people go after these really high volume search terms and they write really bad content that's just never going to be able to rank for that keyword. So you can save yourself tons of time, lots of money if you look at things from this perspective. Okay, so questions, I'm going to kind of dig in here now. If you have questions, I'm going to see what we've got. So I got a couple good questions here. So why is Moz better, or is Moz better? I like it personally. I use it for different things. So if we're talking about it just as a keyword tool, you guys kind of saw the functionality. That's what I like about it. It's just kind of easy. SEMrush gives you almost the exact same stuff, but I use Mozbar to kind of look at page authority and domain authority, and I can see it all on one page. I use both tools. It's kind of a luxury of working at Ezoic. We have a lot of tools that we can use. As a publisher, you probably have to make a choice between one or the other. SEMrush, I feel like, is a better research tool in a lot of respects. However, Moz, I feel like, is really good for monitoring individual sites. So I monitor all of my web properties in Moz, and then I use SEMrush to do a lot of research and things like that. So it's not a great answer, but you can use all those different tools to do those things. The app.wordtracker.com is actually a really good free keyword research tool if you're not looking to make an investment in any of that stuff. Do stop words matter? So that's a good question as well. Stop words don't matter near as much as they used to. Google looks at things like broad match and stuff along those lines as well now. If you go and you search really high volume keywords right now, you'll find that a lot of the top results don't even include the keyword, maybe even in the title, or they don't include the full keyword. And it's because the stop words really don't matter the way that they used to. Google is much more sophisticated than that. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But I would try to be specific about not keyword stuffing, but making sure you do use your keywords. I hear a lot of advice out there right now, people saying, oh, keywords are dead, don't worry about keywords. Well, how else are we supposed to determine what somebody's searching for? You know what I mean? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, can only go so far to figure people out. Words are still the best way that we have to kind of match queries and things like that together. Do I use the content curation networks first, or do I use Google, or do I use Google fetch before the network? So I usually fetch the stuff right away. It's the very first thing that I do, but realize it's going to take Google anywhere from 24 to 48 hours to actually index it from that point. That's just my experience. They're going to tell you they have no idea how long it's going to take, but the truth is it's probably going to take 24 to 48 hours. I go ahead and start sharing right away because they're going to be tracking those UX metrics and things like that anyways. All that stuff is really important on my site. So I just want it out there as soon as possible. I don't worry about it. I just try to get it indexed as soon as possible. If you had an hour of time to do everything, I would just do it all in that 1 hour. It doesn't matter what order you do it in or whatever. Whenever I push new content live, most of the time I set aside 30 minutes, maybe an hour to kind of push it out into all these different places. There's communities that I post it in. There's things that I do on LinkedIn. It just depends on who your audience is and where you share your content. Is there any chance to automate all these postings into social network? Is that something you do all by hand? I use TweetDeck, as I showed you, for Twitter, and then I actually use the platform on Facebook because I boost a lot of stuff of ours and some of mine. So I like to do that inside of the platform. LinkedIn is a little cumbersome. But you can use tools like Hootsuite and things like that, and you can automate all this stuff. So to answer your question, people certainly do it. My only caveat with that is make sure that you're not just if you don't have a big social media and you're trying to grow it, if you're just checking a box with it and you're just automating a bunch of stuff to go out there, people aren't going to care. If you have a big social media following, it'll work a little bit better, kind of automate those kind of that content being pushed out constantly. But one of the big things that I would mention in all of this is that social media isn't just meant to be something you automate, set, and forget. So I like to be engaged as much as I can. Tools like Hootsuite and things like that are usually pretty good at allowing you to kind of stay engaged with that stuff. But that's just a caveat I would do. But yeah, I mean, most people do automate some level of it to some degree. Let's see. Will embedded YouTube video add to the quality of content and make it rank higher? That's a really good question. It could not. So here's the thing. If it increases your session duration, which it likely can, it's very possible. If you just have a video and very thin content, there's aside from all the ad stuff that potentially could come with that, the big risk with that is sometimes people are either on their phone or they're at work or all these other factors, and they don't want to watch a video. They'd rather read content. And so if you're relying on a video to carry 100% of the keyword, if you're creating new content, you're like, I'm going to put a video embedded on this page, it's a risky strategy. It doesn't work out a lot. You don't see a lot of pages indexed in Google where you click on it and it takes you right to a page with a YouTube video on it. More likely that YouTube video is going to rank in Google search than the page with the YouTube video on it. However, I've had a lot of success where I embed YouTube videos in the middle of my pages and things like that. So if somebody wants to watch a video on maybe a topic that I'm talking about, my session duration goes way through the ceiling. So YouTube videos are a great supplement, but if you're planning on building your entire practice around that, it's really, really tough, I think. Let's see. Yeah, a good mention here as well. Someone mentioned Buffer is a good tool. I've heard that as well. I've never used it. Thanks for the recommendation, Alexander. Alejandro, sorry, Alexander was the person asking the question. So is sharing on Google Plus a good thing for SEO, even if you don't get a lot of shares used? Yeah, it is, because it's another It's another source. It's another social signal. So yeah, it's kind of an often forgot about network. Google Plus, yeah, it still exists. You can go find it. Yeah, I share things to that network because basically what you're trying to do is show popularity in your content. People are active, they're interested in it. So even if you just get 1 or 2 clicks, and that's really might be all that you get, it is another social signal showing that networks are interested in this content. Users are finding it from all kinds of different locations. It may not help you a ton, but listen, in this process, what I found is there's things that help sometimes, there's things that help all the time, and there's things that help just a couple times. But if you do them all the time, you're most likely to receive all the benefits. Because the bottom line, guys, is you could crank out content all day long, and you could potentially spin your wheels. Or you could crank out content a little bit slower, but you could know for sure that it's gonna do well. And this is 100% what I'm trying to get us to focus on here today. So the last question I'll answer today is, are links in the comment systems like Discus, which are basically like, you know, everybody has those at the bottom of your post. You have different ways for users to comment, things like that. Discus is a really common one. Are links in comment systems like Discus, do they get indexed and help improve domain authority, page authority, and ultimately building good backlinks? So I'm not sure if you're talking about ones that get posted on your page or ones that you might post in other people's. I would say be very selective. Google has done a really good job of downgrading the value of these things because so many spammers use them. If you guys have these comments, you probably get tons and tons of spam where it's not very good, you know, links to other sites and things like that. So you can actually comment. So if I find an article in the Washington Post about artificial intelligence, I might post something about Ezoic because we're one of the leaders in this industry in artificial intelligence for publishers. So I might say, hey, it's really interesting. Have you seen some of our data about you know, ad combinations on pages or something like that? And I may post a link to something that we do. But just going around to blogs and things like that on similar subjects and just kind of spamming them with my links, it's not going to do a whole lot for me or my page or domain authority. So that looks like it's it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll have another Ezoic customers only web event here in about 2 weeks, basically about how to get more out of Ezoic and how to basically achieve some of these things just by using some of the testing and artificial intelligence features of Ezoic. If you're not currently an Ezoic user, I encourage you to sign up and give the system a try. It's really great, especially if you show ads on your site. Very last thing I'll leave you with is a lot of the things that I talked about today are rehashed from deep dives that I've done on blog.ezoic.com. If you go to blog.ezoic.com, not only do I talk about this, I talk about tons of stuff about how to make more money from ads, how to basically get your existing content to rank higher. All that stuff is in there. If you enjoy this kind of stuff, I talk about it every week on a podcast that I do with a friend of mine, John Cole, who was in the advertising network business for a long time. He's kind of a poacher turned gamekeeper. It's called the Publisher Lab. It's on iTunes. It's been very popular. We get 5,000 to 6,000 downloads now an episode. And so we're really trying to grow it. And I think if you are an online publisher, there's probably a few resources where you're getting up-to-date news on a weekly basis the way that we're giving it to you because it's very publisher focused. So I encourage you to go check it out, the Publisher Lab on iTunes. It's also available on Stitcher, and start listening to the podcast. And then last but not least, if you enjoyed it, you have feedback for me, I'm a glutton for punishment, so feel free to give me whatever feedback you've got. tbishop@ezoic.com. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon on one of our upcoming web events. Thanks a lot, and I will see you guys later.